Howdy ho, good neighbors. What's going on? It is Phil Russert, your I don't know, you're a loudmouth Irishman that you love to get angry at. Anyway, I'm here because we like to spotlight creators of all kinds, whether they're big names or up and coming names. We try to give a full hour to everybody because I really like to try to push and promote in the indie community. There's a lot of great books out there that maybe you haven't seen, or maybe you're afraid to take a chance on. I get it. We're all clutching onto our wallets right now. Things are a little tight, and we're specific about where we want our money to go. But sometimes you come on one of my shows and you check out a campaign, you go, oh, wow, that actually looks really good. And then you go and you back it, and you are really supporting someone who's doing this out of passion, out of excitement, out of a love for the medium. And that's why I do this. So without further ado, a perfect example of that is tonight's creator. He's created Annabelle, the series, okay? And he's had many successful Kickstarters. And he's got another one right now live with 13 days to go. So without further ado, Todd Rayner.
How you doing, Phil?
What's going on?
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you back. Always a pleasure. I think that there are a lot of good people that they really just need. If you get in front of enough people, you'd be surprised how quick a fire can catch, but it's always tough to get in front of those people. So welcome aboard, and hopefully we get you in front of a few people.
That would be great. I absolutely agree. Like it only takes one person, really, I think, for things to kind of catch fire. Word of mouth kind of is still by far the fastest way to spread stuff, even though we have social media, but it's word of mouth.
I agree. And you can't shadow ban word of mouth.
This is true.
And they're not going to slap tape over your mouth and make you pay for it. Pay to say it. Yeah.
Exactly. I've kind of been feeling that lately, so I don't know. Man. We'll see.
Yeah, it's tough because as indie creators, there are a lot of obstacles in our way. People. I'll talk about gatekeeping, and people get on my case. There is gatekeeping. A perfect form of gatekeeping is Facebook, right? If you share a post, did you know the only reason why you get 1 or 2 likes is because nobody's seeing it? Facebook doesn't like when you share a post because you're tapping into another audience. They want you to pay for promotion. So that's a form of gatekeeping. They're kind of keeping you from getting out there on what's supposed to be a social platform because they want to monetize off of it. So there are forms of gatekeeping that we don't always maybe realize. I mean, as a creator, what do you think are some of the struggles that you come across?
Really just visibility, I think. I mean, and that definitely touches on your gatekeeping comment there. I don't know if it's necessarily gatekeeping. I do believe there's absolutely, with social media, there is a form of gatekeeping, like you just said. They kind of want you to play by their rules, even though it's a social platform and you're supposed to be social and sharing stuff is social. I'm not a kind of a social butterfly myself. I'm more of a recluse, but I do go out and do shows. But to me, it's just down to visibility. It's having enough people being here on the West Coast. Like I do a few shows local to Seattle, and I think I definitely have my fan base. When this Kickstarter launched, it was like 15 people, 20 people that, always back my stuff. They were there, ready to go.
Nice.
So I do have that fan base local to kind of my area. And I think all of us creators have that, right? If we do local shows, if wherever you live, there's going to be some, conventions that you can do. There's going to be something, whether it's a mall show or a hotel show or a big show at a convention center. But it's getting that visibility across the country and kind of globally. I've been very lucky that I've had people from other countries find my Kickstarters and back them. So it is nice to have that. You get that one random person from Australia or New Zealand or something odd like that. At the end of the day, the more people see things, the chances of more people liking what you do and this then becoming more of a permanent, kind of ongoing thing, it makes you feel better about it. There's that spark. There's that light at the end of the tunnel. I could keep doing this. I'm not always going to be losing money.
Right. Well, and it's funny, though, because you talk about international. I honestly think we'd have a lot more international buyers and followers if it wasn't for the exorbitant shipping costs, because a lot of times the shipping is way
Yeah.
more than the book. It's like
Yeah.
$35 to Brazil. I had a
Yeah.
place, a guy from a specific spot in Australia was $63 to ship. I mean,
damn.
yeah, I know, and I didn't know. I prepared for the $35, so
Yeah.
and that's why they backed it. They were like, "Oh, this idiot doesn't." You know, he sold himself short.
I do 20. I do 20 for international, and sometimes it's over, sometimes it's less, but that covers pretty much the ballpark for me because I only get a handful. And again, like I'm happy to eat that cost, but really, should it be that much? I don't know.
And you can only eat that cost so much before
for so long.
So yeah, I mean, generosity only goes so far, unfortunately.
Exactly.
Sustainability.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I mean, a lot of the things that we have going against us is shipping costs, printing costs. Printing has just gone up through the roof again. I was using Comics Wellspring and
okay.
about them, and they went up to $4.44 for a 28-page floppy, which is
wow.
How do you do that? You know, so it's tough. And then and their turnaround time has been slower and slower and slower. So
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's and I really like the company. I'm not saying anything bad about them. Just they unfortunately they felt they needed to raise their prices to something that is just too much for a little guy like me who's only doing several hundred in a print run, not thousands. You know, and even on thousands, it wasn't going down enough. You know.
Yeah, you're doing several hundred. Wow, I need to step it up here.
So anyway, let's. You were on not too long ago, but tell us a little bit about you and Dark Space Studio, and what you're about, what you're doing, and then we'll get into the campaign in the book.
Yeah, I will be as quick as I can. I'm not very good at elevator pitches, but the short of the story is, I basically, been an artist for as long as I can remember. I created a character called Ice Pick back in high school, many moons ago, and over the years, it got shelved, come back to it when I felt like I was a little bit better, published that under a different company. And, while I was publishing the 4 issues of Ice Pick, which is actually the first appearance of Annabelle, my wife was like, why don't you just do your own studio? Like, we live in a world today where we have so many opportunities. And I said, that's a hell of an idea. What are we going to call it? Right. And we're literally sitting in Portland at Rose City Comic-Con, and we just were throwing out ideas. And, I like kind of, I don't know, maybe the more darker side of storytelling, supernatural stuff, a little bit deeper, fun storytelling like that. And we, she kind of came up with the idea of Dark Space Studio. So I was like, cool. How much does it cost to make this a legit company? And
it really doesn't take much.
I was really surprised. It's not that much. And I was like, okay, we can swing that. So we set it up, and kind of the rest is a little bit of history. I just published the, Ice Pick under Dark Space Studio. And, all those issues, 3 of those issues were successful, crowdfunding issues. The first one I never even did on crowdfunding. I literally just put it out there and was at shows.
How did you feel about that compared to crowdfunding?
It was a pain in the ass. I mean, the reality is, so for like Ice Pick, I ended up doing the whole book myself. I was the writer, artist, letterer, publisher, the whole 9. So it took a solid 10 months for me to complete an issue. And by the time I got done with issue 4, and I was like, okay, well, what's next? There's always that what's next for us as publishers.
Right.
You always got to have that what's next. And for me, it was like, I came up with this brilliant yet very crazy idea to do another 4-issue miniseries, tell a complete story, but focus on a different character. Instead of Ice Pick, I kind of abandoned, in a way, that fan base for that kind of a story. Ice Pick's like this 90s throwback superhero, over the top. It's what I grew up with. It's what I really love. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I have these 3 main characters in Ice Pick, and it's
agree with you, Raymond. Sorry, go ahead.
Agree. Yeah, totally agree.
What's up, Charles?
I was like, hey, why not switch up genres and do story about a female character? So I ended up doing that with Annabelle, and that's kind of the history with that. And that fan base from Ice Pick, they did definitely migrate over to Annabelle, and it's nice to see that they're supporting a different genre, a different character, a different type of storytelling. And it was a little bit of challenge. It was a challenge to kind of write a different story. It was a little challenging to come out of that 90s over the top writing that made the 90s fun with comics into something, more strong female character. How am I going to give these characters personality, expand on, the character development, those types of things.
I saw two things. First, what I do like about what your format is that people don't have to read everything to know what's going on. If they just want to enjoy Ice Pick or they want to just enjoy Annabelle, they can do that, which is great, But at the same time, to enrich the experience, you can get everything, which I think is great. Hey, Chris, what's going on?
Hey.
I had a point and I forgot my point because I don't sleep.
Well,
but
you tack on to that. You're right. Like Annabelle is its own story, and I started Ice Pick as like I like little subtitles. So it's basically Ice Pick, but then the story I'm telling it's called My Story, and it's literally Ice Pick's story, how he became a superhero. And for me, like Annabelle is traversing deeper, and we traverse deeper into her character, into her background, into her history. You don't need to read Ice Pick, but you do definitely get Annabelle, and the next character will be Luke. You get Annabelle and Luke in Ice Pick. You get their characters, some of the things that happen with them. It's not pertinent, but it's kind of that fun little,
which is good because it doesn't make the reader feel forced to that they're missing some of the story. But at the same time, that option is there is to just enrich the story more with more lore, which I think is great. I think it's a great format that you're doing. I think it's a smart format, but it's also, you can tell that you're one of those fans that was like, I hated when Marvel and DC forced you to go pick up an issue from a book you couldn't stand to just so you knew what the hell was going on in X-Men. It was obviously a ploy to get you to boost sales on books that were suffering. I get it. It's smart business in a way for short term, but maybe not for long term, because after a while, people kind of get tired of the gimmicks of things. So I think this is smart what you're doing. And as far as Ice Pick is concerned, we're going to go into your Annabelle's latest campaign, but where can we go if they want to go back in time and get Ice Pick?
Well, the nice thing I did with issue 4 of Annabelle is after the 4 issues of Ice Pick was done, I did a definitive edition trade. It is a gigantic trade paperback. It's like 160 plus pages. It is only $20. It is part of the Annabelle Kickstarter. So if they would like the individual issues, they can go to my website, darkspacestudio.com. And if they want to kind of pick up the trade, it's basically all 4 issues of Ice Pick. So we're having 80 plus pages of artwork, the story of the 4 issues of Ice Pick. But I also do albeit throwback kind of feel. I pulled in all of my old artwork from when I was a teenager, from my, middle 20s, when I was drawing different variations and versions of Ice Pick. And I added all of that artwork into that definitive edition trade.
Oh, very cool. Very nice. So
that's another, probably 40 pages of like really crappy artwork. I have to say, like, I wasn't Rob Liefeld when I was 16 drawing like good.
Yeah, but people love that stuff, to see where you began and came down. And for aspiring artists, it can show growth and that you can, you get better over time. So I think it's a good thing. Hey, Demetrios, what's going on? I just want to do a quick shout out. Demetrios is the owner, CEO of Black Box Comics, who is in local stores. He puts out a lot of great titles. He's a good man. He's a family man. He's everything this industry should be. He works with integrity and decency, puts out great quality stories, and he's doing it, man. He's succeeding. He's in comic shops. So if you haven't checked out Black Box Comics, please go check them out. They're well worth the read and everything, because they have something for everybody, whether it's a kid's title, horror, espionage, superhero, they've got it. So sorry to interrupt, Todd. I just want to give him a shout out. There's a lot of people.
No, he does. He produces really good quality stuff. being an artist, like I'm kind of a fan first. So when I see something that artistically draws my eye, I'm like, that's pretty badass, and I will pick those types of books up as well. So I agree. Like,
Yeah, pro stuff, man, pro stuff, and
yeah.
he's the leading example for a lot of us,
Yeah.
right now. So very cool. And Charles W. Morgan, what's up? I got your issue number 3 of Cold Cutter. Thank you. It's awesome. Anyway, so we're gonna go into the campaign. I'll play the trailer. You want me to play the trailer, right?
Yeah, if you want, sure. It's a fun trailer.
Absolutely.
Nothing too crazy, I should say. It's not Hollywood Marvel budget, but you know.
It doesn't have to be. The fact that people, a lot of people, because budgets are hard, they don't do trailers. Trailers are important for these campaigns for sure.
I know. And I do all these myself. Like, I've been a designer for almost, 20 years now. So, I mean, I do a lot of the video work. I do all the Kickstarters all myself.
Very cool. See, and that's all the more reason to support, guys, because you're supporting a passion play, not a money grab.
Yeah.
Let's check this out. Whoa, what happened? Oh, there we go. That was a good trailer.
Thanks.
Good. You downplayed yourself. Smart business tactic.
Yeah.
So you're at 1,023. You've funded with 30 backers, 13 days to go. I just want to remind everybody, don't be fooled by this number, though, because Kickstarter takes their 11%, and shipping costs are in that. All right. So what you put towards shipping goes into this goal. So understand that he is funded here, but he's not making money. So if you want to see more books, we need to make revenue.
Yeah.
Okay. So we touched on this, of course. Go ahead.
No, please.
We touched on it, but so tell us more about Annabelle. We know about Ice Pick. You touched on Annabelle, who she is as a character. What are we expecting out of this book? Obviously, you can't give spoilers. And why do we want to pick up the other 3 so we can really know what's going on?
Well, the fun thing that because this is a loose continuation from Ice Pick, the only thing really that this does is Annabelle and Adam is her fiance. We find out in Ice Pick that she thought he was dead. He obviously is not. So people that want to read that story, go read that. That's a lot of fun stuff. But for this, it literally picks up like the day after issue 4 of Ice Pick. And she finds out he's alive. And she's like, hey, can we get back to some kind of normalcy with our lives? Like, you're alive. I thought you were dead for months and months, almost a year, and they had a funeral for him and all that good stuff. But so the moment they get back to their apartment and she receives a phone call from her sister, what seems to be an urgent phone call. So she immediately, they don't get a break. They don't catch a break. She immediately leaves and says, I got to go find out what's going on with my sister. In that journey, she gets kidnapped by a ancient Sumerian dragon. And for me, I do the best I can to research. I mean, we can never do enough research, but I love supernatural creatures. I love lore of, things of this world, right? Ghosts, goblins, all that fun stuff. come to find out, as I started researching dragons, I thought they would make a fun, villain in the story. I learned that, ancient Samaria had basically the first documented stories of a dragon, and his name was Kerr. And it kind of, as the legends go, he would basically eat virgins to continue his life, to just keep his life force going. And I'm like, that sounds like a hell of a cool little villain, right? And that's really where the idea, the seed kind of came from. But Annabelle gets kidnapped. She finds out that she's kidnapped by a real dragon that can transform into a man. And that's where the story unfolds. And we find out that this ancient Sumerian dragon, there's a lot of history with Annabelle's parents, with Icepick's parents, Adam's parents, and even Luke's parents. He reveals the history, the centuries of history that has been going on with their parents and this dragon Kerr. So if you like dragons, you like chicks kicking butt, you like fun storytelling. As you saw the art in the trailer, the art team is phenomenal. Sergio Ray is the artist. This is his first book he's ever worked on as an artist. I thought that it just blew me away. His artwork, his rendition of my characters, just generally speaking, everything he does. Morrow, the inker, and Edwin, colorist. Hopefully I say their names right. They're all in South America. I'm terrible at pronunciating names, but they're phenomenal. They're professionals. They work as professionals. The art, I think, looks really great. It's at least on par with a lot of indie books out there, and that's, as an artist myself, I want to make sure that I can produce quality books, right? Everybody has an art style and I can respect that. But for me, I like this type of art style. I like the 90s art. I like, the fun, over the top storytelling. So, this story is basically Annabelle's story, and, the dragon's out for revenge. He's out to kind of basically kill her. That's, at the end of the day, that's what he wants to do.
That's a good cover.
Yeah, that's the artist, the interior artist, Sergio. There is some boobies running around here, but they're all covered up, so we won't get flagged by the police there. But
there you go. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and this was a little bit of a different storytelling for me, as being the writer of Icepick and reading so many comics in the 90s. It was relatively easy to write a 90s superhero book, but writing a strong female character book, it was a little challenging. You're kind of doing a little bit of not really a traditional, I guess, TNA book, but this was, and that cover, I love that cover. That's John Stinsman.
Oh yeah, John,
artist from back in the day.
Yeah, great
phenomenal guy. He was on my launch live stream, and just a really great guy to sit around and chat to. Lots of fun stories from back in the day.
I met him in Phoenix, I think in 2012. He drew on one of my jams. He's a nice guy, good guy.
Yeah, and he's one of the guys that really, really inspired me as a young creator. As a teenager, early 20s in the 90s, his Evangeline work was just, there's a handful of creators, whether it be writers or artists, inkers, whoever, colorists. They just inspire us to do what we do and have that passion. And John was definitely one of those guys. So I was just flabbergasted that he would just, obviously I pay him, but the fact that he's like, no, I'll make time and I will do a cover for your book, and for me, that's an honor to work with such a professional. But yeah,
Very
this
cool.
is just, it's a fun story. To me, it's just a lot of people have read the prior issues. This seems to have good feedback on it. And,
how many pages is it?
It's 22. Pretty typical. I know some books go to 28, or, I will start migrating over into trade paperbacks, I think, 48 pages, things like that, and just do a self-contained story. But for right now, we're wrapping up issue 4 of Annabelle. And I will be doing a trade as well for that. We'll have some goodies involved with some extra art, some, stuff that Sergio's been putting together, new covers, things like that. We'll also, I'll be working on a little short story that I'll be doing all myself that takes place
Oh, cool.
between issue 4 of Annabelle and issue 1 of the next 4-issue miniseries, which is called Luke, and it's going to be his story, and that's called Bloody Tooth. That'll be hopefully launching next year sometime.
Now, as a writer,
Yeah.
tell me if I'm alone in this. I don't think I am. You get all these different ideas, and you get overwhelmed because you just want to put them all out at once, and sometimes it's hard to stay patient. Sometimes it's hard to struggle with, it costs money to make these books. They cost several $1,000s to make a book, but you have all these ideas. You just want to get out there and you want people to enjoy because you think it's really good. And is it ever maddening for you as a creator? Because I know it is for me.
It's weird. I mean, I have a day job, and this is definitely a hobby of mine, and I'm very, content and kind of blessed in a way to be able to do this as a hobby. Obviously, I'm not making money doing this, but I'm passionate about it. When I come on podcasts or people that come up to me at shows, like they see that, and I don't always notice like the passion I have, but apparently it's there. And yes, it's definitely a struggle to. If money wasn't an object, I would be putting out probably 3 books a month. I would be able to write 2 or 3 different. I mean, because there's that creativity, right? You just always have something else, something different that you want to tell, a different story, a different path, more character development. Oh, this one idea that's kind of blossomed into something like crazy, and it's like a 12-issue story arc.
Right.
I can say like I was like. I think wrapping up issue 2 of Annabelle, which was earlier this year, and I was already writing the trade, which is like not even. I mean, it's one of those things that's not going to come out for probably another couple of years because I have to get it all together. But I did. I was like, I have this awesome idea. Here's another really cool villain. Let me tell a story about this cool villain.
Well, I just know that. Some sort of floodgate opened in me when I got sick in 2020, and it just has not stopped. And like you, I want to put this stuff out. I just want to keep going.
Yeah, agreed. Same way.
So I'm sharing this out to other groups, just so you know. That's why I'm on my phone.
Oh yeah, no, I appreciate that. Yeah, I agree. Like Charles was mentioning here, it is. Like I said, money. If money wasn't an object, we had the Disney Marvel budget. Like we could, have a team, and writing. It's a weird thing because writing wasn't necessarily something I cared so much about, but now I do because I write stories.
Right. Well, guys like Charles, I feel his frustration even more because he's the artist and writer, so he's penciling and inking, so it's even longer for him. And I can't imagine how you can be patient drawing your book when you're so excited to just get it done and get it out there. So for a guy like Charles, I'm sure it's very frustrating. And he, like myself and like you, we have our day jobs, we have our careers, we have our families. So it's sometimes that itch, that inspiration hits you at the wrong times. Like, shit, I'm at work right now. I can't sit here and write this story. And I'm really in the mood to write this right now. I got this great scene in my head, So that is the creator's bane, and at the same time, our blessing, I guess.
Yeah, it is. And Charles, that's kind of why I ended up going with an art team. And, it took a little bit of convincing with my wife because, again, if I'm not doing the book myself, and let's say I'm only paying for covers, then I'm saving that thousands of dollars per issue.
Right.
Like this is not something that we can do for $500. Like, a solid artist, I mean, the page rates, they're there. And when I reached out to like even the artists for the books for Annabelle, all the artists, I'm like, okay, I like your work. What do you charge? And there was no negotiation. It was like, this is what I charge. Okay, that's what you're going to get paid. If I can manage that as a company, you will. And if not, then I had to find someone that fits my budget. Right. Like even John, I was like, John, okay, you're available. What do you charge? Okay.
Well, it's not just fits your budget, but fits what you're doing, right? The art style has to match your theme and what you're doing. So it narrows down a lot.
It does. Yeah. It really does.
So, I mean, you also have some. You had great price points in your books. You know, for $15, guys, you can invest in the issue. And then you've got some art. You know, original art that's for
I
sale,
do.
and that's, you know, if you know what the original art market is like right now, you know, you may say, well, it's an indie book, it's not well known, expensive. Okay, but so what? To get $125 to get a full 11 by 17 comic art board, I don't care what the book is. That's a steal.
Well, in the next tier, which I know it's a little bit more understood, but that's, you're getting all the covers, or even for 200,
Right.
you're getting all the covers and original art. So not trying to sell myself,
Wow.
but I mean that's a hell of a deal. And
Yeah.
I do have, there's some of my Instagram reels I've been putting out have been like a lot of like me drawing different things. And if you look at any of the covers I've done for Annabelle, any of the artwork for Ice Pick, any of those that have seen the artwork in Ice Pick, I don't slouch on detail. Cross hatching is my friend. And this is not just, with these original art tiers, this is, if you tell me who to draw, I will draw that character. This is not just like my universe of characters. Like, I'm open for, like, original art is just that. It is, if you want Spider-Man, fine, whoever, Cyclops, I don't really care.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sorry, go ahead.
No, they determine that, right? If they message me like I want that character, that's what they get.
Right. Well, you know, it's funny because on the other end, I remember I used to hear like big time people say, I don't write for you or for the fans, or I don't draw for the fans.
Yeah.
And I used to think it was like, wow, what an egotistical, shitty thing to say, but I didn't understand what they were saying. Now I do.
Right.
If you write worried about what people are going to like or not like, or who's this and that, you're never going to write anything quality because you can't please everyone. And there's just too many different tastes in the world, too many different people. And now you're not writing a coherent quality story for the sake of the story that you want to tell. You're fan servicing that may not even work anyway. And it just ruins the storytelling. So you have to write what you want to write. And we hope and we pray that people see it as we do and enjoy it and love it like we do. So that's what people mean when they say, I don't write for fans, I write for me, because we can't please everybody. We can just write the stories that we want to tell, and we hope that you enjoy it. And I think that's the other side of that.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because at first I was kind of like, oh, I mean, I say I'm a fan first, and I appreciate that, Jason.
Hey, Jason.
I hope you do. I do, because I'm such a fan that even when I'm doing shows, I'm tabling a show. If I was down in Pure Oak, Washington a few years ago, and Jim Lee was there, and I was just like, honey, can you watch the table? I have to go meet Jim Lee. And again, awesome guy, phenomenal person. Really enjoyed the few minute or so I got to talk with him. But at the end of the day, like, it's a catch-22, because if you don't write something kind of for the fans, or if you're not writing something that the fans want to read, you're not going to be able to do anything, right? You're not going to be able to sell anything. If you only write what you want, you end up, in a way, you're a little selfish, but you have to I would amend that statement to say, I don't write necessarily for the fans, but I take that into consideration when writing.
Right. No, I get it. And I didn't mean it in an argumentative way. I just meant like, of course, sometimes you throw something in as a little fan service if you have those diehard fans, of course.
Right.
But you still do it within the context of what you want to write, how you want to write it. A perfect example is, you look at a movie like what was the episode 9 of Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
To do damage control, they did a lot of fan service in that.
Yep.
And it didn't please the fans. So maybe you should just, you can't win. So just write what makes sense for the characters and the stories, and don't worry about that. It's one thing if for fan service they threw in a cameo of somebody really cool, or, stuff like that. That's awesome. You always want to do Easter eggs and things like that. But if your entire story is a hodgepodge of all these things that you feel you have to put in to please every demographic, you just screwed the pooch.
Yeah. And that's what I
Big
mean.
time.
It's probably 90-10 for me. Like 90% what I want, maybe, or 95, maybe
Right.
5 or 10% the fans. And I say the fans in a very loose way because, I would include any of the professional writers or screenwriters out there. Do I like good storytelling? Yes. Who are those writers? Who are those screenwriters that make good storytelling? You
Right.
know, Even if it's kind of like a bad movie charm, like bad movie writing, or something that's bad but has that fun charm. I could appreciate that. So it's keeping in
Sure.
mind that if you're going to do something that's blatantly kind of goofy or off the wall, like make sure that that's what it is. Don't try to be serious about something when it doesn't call for it, or don't try to be goofy when it doesn't. So, and I even had like critiques on the 4 issues of Ice Pick. Steve Furco
Right.
actually was at a convention and he bought the 1 issue and he came back the next day. And the fact that he would like take time to, again, he's another one of those, colorists that I really looked up to. And he's like, I really like this issue. There was a couple times I had to go back and reread to make sure I didn't miss something. So as someone that primarily was an artist back then, I'm like, oh shit, did I miss something? Do I have to go? And so with Annabelle, I really tried to up my game as a writer to really make the story more cohesive, to make it more something that people would want to
Well,
read, something fun.
it's also hard to find that balance between trusting your reader and knowing what you have to explain, right? I mean, you don't want to narrate everything like Morgan Freeman's Wormhole, because then you're talking down to your reader. But you don't want to be so obscure in thought, in execution, that only you get it because you know the story. So yeah, you have to find balance, that for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. And I think that's kind of what I ended up doing with Annabelle. So I mean, the feedback's been really good. The people that have read the first 3 issues, really, they kind of are coming back, for more. They want to see how this issue 4 wraps up and really what happens. And there's a few, shoes I drop in issue 4 and some really fun stuff. So, I would hope that people, get a chance to check it out.
Yeah, I think they should. And this hasn't gone up yet. So whose house do I have to toilet paper if you don't pledge on this? Green button right there. It's real simple, guys. Back this project. If for whatever reason you're new to Kickstarter, you've never crowdfunded, and it looks a little overwhelming or confusing to you, it really is pretty simple. All you have to do is reach out, DM Todd, or go through his website, or however you have to go, and he can walk you through it to show you how to pledge. It's very simple. They do not take your money until the 13 days are up. So if you know you're going to get paid before then, and you'll have the money, you don't have to wait. You can back now. Don't make us creators sweat. you know, sweating is not good. We don't want to sweat. We want to sit there and say, okay, we're set, we're good, and anything from here on in is a bonus. So, and if you, whatever reason, you can't back this moment, and you're like, well, I don't want to lose this campaign. Right there, remind me. You click remind me, and you will get notification through email with 48 hours left, 24 hours left, and a few hours before the end of the campaign, so that you will be reminded and you won't forget and miss out. Because I've had some people miss out on my last campaign. They're like, oh my God, I didn't even realize. So it's important to hit that remind me button if you cannot hit the back this project button right now. But back this project is good right now. They don't take your money for 13 days.
Exactly. And that's the one thing I will say that is good about Kickstarter is, they don't do that right away. I try to plan my Kickstarters to fall to launch on kind of closer, even though I hear weekends are slow, but that way, at least, I try to take people into consideration when I try to let it go a solid 4 weeks to let people have time to like it, back it, whatever they can do. But yeah, and I have all the other prior issues, all the variant covers, they're all at a discount. I even had a few backers actually reach out to me and say, hey, can you make this an add-on, like this cover bundle? So I've added all the prior covers as individual bundles, so that if there's like, you like this set of covers, you can get, just the regular variants, whatever variants you like, you can get those variant covers. as bundles. And it's an interesting thing. I mean, us indie creators using Kickstarter as a kind of a way to get our books into people's hands. It's a challenge. We talked a little bit earlier about the whole distribution of indie comics, and it's an interesting thing. I think there's just a lot from a business side point for brick and mortar stores to take into consideration when trying to have an indie book in their stores. For them,
Right.
It's got to be profitable. So how do you balance that profitability of an unknown entity? You don't want to have your livelihood based on carrying 100 indie books and only 2 of them sell. So
Right.
it's a challenge in
Well,
its
see,
own. Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. See, that's things, and you're talking about a post I made earlier that seemed to bother a few people. I do just want. Oh, we went up. There you go. Okay. I just want to make this point. People say it's negative and it's me putting down hope. No, it's not. We can't keep our heads in the sand and keep doing things that aren't working well for us and acting like it is working well. I love this industry. I love comics. I love a lot of people that do what we're all doing here. And I'm posing the tough questions that we can have a conversation about. One of the people that responded, Justin, he asked, what do you think about this business model? And that's what that's supposed to spark, ideas, not coming at me because you feel I'm discouraging. I'm not discouraging anybody. Here's the trick. There are 2 different types of comic creators right now in my mind. There is the comic creator who's not really putting out with the intent of gaining readership, for a story. They're putting out covers, collectible stuff, things like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. That helps bring revenue into the industry. Absolutely. Because you're hiring artists, you're hiring editors, you're still hiring those people. So I'm not knocking that. But I'm on the other side. You're on the other side. We're looking at people who we want to read the stories and we want the readership to grow. So my posts aren't saying that the industry is doom and gloom. This industry is not going to die. It's not going to go anywhere. It's going to go with its ups and downs. Yeah. The bubble's going to burst a couple of times, but it's going to reinvent itself. And I just think we're at a point where we're going to reinvent ourselves again. And I think something good is going to come out of the bubble bursting soon. But we have to start having that hard conversation about what are we going to do to make indie publishers have a shot? Because we're not even getting in the ring right now, guys. We're not. We can fool ourselves and pretend we're getting in the ring, but we're really sitting outside as spectators. And there's no room for growth doing that. This Kickstarter is not meant to be distribution. It's meant to be a startup.
Yeah, and I use it as a startup as well, but I also use it as a way for kind of like a pre-sale. I use it as a way that anybody that backs any of the Kickstarters I produce, they are getting their books before the general public has that availability. And so therefore you're getting something that someone else really doesn't have for a determined amount of time. But you're absolutely right. The whole distribution, there are, being up in the Seattle area, there's definitely, I've looked into this and a little bit. I'm terrible at marketing, even though I work in a marketing department at my company. I can do the marketing things, but as far as comics go, as far as like this industry goes, there's not a lot of avenues for a good, like measurable ROI on marketing. If I'm going to do, we talked about, the whole paying thing with social media. If I spend $50 on an ad for any social platform,
you can't quantify what that's doing for you.
I have no way to know what that ROI is. And for a small indie publisher, we need a return. We need to be able to calculate that return on investment. My degree not only is in design, but it's also in small business. But again, like comics is its own beast. It just doesn't have the things that it had back in the day. You're right. There are really 2 types of creators. When I sell out of these Kickstarter variant covers, that will be it. Ice Pick had Kickstarter variant covers. Those are no longer in print and will never be in print. So there's an exclusivity that I try to offer for Kickstarter,
Mm-hmm.
but then I'm going to continue to be publishing books.
Right.
So it's one of those things like I want to give something back to the readers, back to the supporters, but then also, let them know that what you have is exclusive. It will never,
Right.
once it's gone, it's gone.
And again, and that's that collector market. And there's two different challenges that go on with that. When you're putting out an NSFW book or or like big covers that are really catching people, right? It's as simple as I look at the cover. If I have the money and I want it, I buy it, and that's why those campaigns do very well. But when you're a book that is story driven first, you're selling trust, not the story, because people like brands, they like resumes, they like the name. They look at a book like Annabelle and they're like, oh, that looks interesting, but do I want to take a shot on it for the $15 when I can go buy 3 books for $5? It's hard because Annabelle could be better than those 3 books, and it probably is. But unless they take the plunge, unless they invest and trust you, they won't know. So, that's the difference between selling something that's art driven and visually right there for you, because right there, I love this cover, period. Boom. That's it. There's no discussion, but when you look at a story, unless I pick that book up and read it, I have no idea if it's worth my money or not.
And that's true. Like if you put, you take as many indie creators as you can, there's a dime a dozen, and you talk about growth, and that's a huge thing that we struggle with is growth. But if you were to take, your books, my books, it take, 100 indie creators and all their books, drop them in a comic shop, and let's say you if you're competing with the big 3 or even like the top 10, big 3 and all the other indie creators out there, the larger ones, Zenoscope and, all the Valley, all those, how many people are going to take a chance at retail value? Like, let's say our books are toe-to-toe $5 with them. They're still, I feel that they're still going to pick that known character, even though a lot of people have been complaining about the writing of larger stories.
Agreed. Right? I won't name any names, but there are big name writers that are still riding the wave of good things they wrote 10, 15 years ago, and their recent stuff is not good, but people will still buy it up and be online. And that's just the nature of the business. But for $4.99, I think people are more willing to take that plunge, or at the very least, it may not be people like to collect issue 1s because in case it blows up, I've got the issue 1. So, if you get into comic stores, you have a chance of doing pretty well. Number 2, it's going to dip. Number 3, it's going to dip. You get to number 4, you get to number 5, they go, okay, this thing is still going. It looks like it's sticking around. I'll invest in it. Or word of mouth and buzz, like you talked about, starts to kick in. And people go, all right, now for $4.99, I'm going to give it a try. And I think the problem is most readers aren't looking to Kickstarter for books. I mean, I know you'll hear somebody say, oh, I always go to Kickstarter for new books, indie books to read, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but how many can you buy because we have to charge so much, 1, and 2, who are you buying from? Because I don't see. I don't see you posting anything about it. I don't see you creating a buzz about it. I don't see you talking about it. But everybody's buzzing about the book they hate or love from the comic store that Marvel did. So, with being in a store, people are thinking linear. It's not just, okay, it's a cheaper price point and you're there. But that's you're catering to your demographic right Absolutely. There. And on top of that, you also get seen in other avenues. Guys from, and I don't write for this reason, but Netflix people, they have people that just walk into comic stores and they look at properties, they pick up books, and then they determine what's garbage, what's not. And then they bring it to the producer and say, what do you think of this? So that's how sometimes they pick up IPs. So look at it. A crappy distribution run could be 800 to 1,500 books sold.
Yeah.
Do you do that on Kickstarter? I don't. No, I mean, now you'll make more. You'll have a larger profit margin on Kickstarter, of course. But are you growing a fan base of readers? That's my whole. Everything I post, that's my point.
Yeah, and that's true. Like, how do you grow that? And there's a YouTube channel I subscribe to, another indie creator, Matt Campbell. Give a shout out to him. He's got a current Kickstarter going, Mythica issue 9. Now, I think I jumped on, I want to say around, and it might have been issue 7 or 8. And I was just like, screw it. I'm just going to get all these issues because I like the idea. I like what was behind the character. And, he's running his Kickstarter and there's an ebb and flow. And he mentions in his weekly show, they talk about growth. And if you're not growing from, say, issue to issue on Kickstarter, what are you doing wrong? And I can speak for myself. Like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Like, I'm continuing to put out a quality book. I continue to try to market the best I can out of it. But again, it's like, where does that
sometimes see, and that's the thing is I analyze that with myself as well, right? Because I started going backwards. Sometimes it's just that maybe your product is not as good as you think. Sometimes you're just not marketing right or something's wrong.
Yeah.
And sometimes maybe you're just in the wrong spot. Sometimes you're swimming in the wrong pool and this is not where you should be. And I don't think people look at that. They always, we're quick to say, well, what are you doing wrong? Maybe I'm not doing things wrong. I'm just doing them right in the wrong area. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
that makes total sense. And that's where the idea came from. Annabelle really is, I loved what I did with Ice Pick. And I think, as much kind of trash as 90s comics get, they set the bar. I mean, they were selling millions and millions of copies.
Right.
Even when they broke off, just to say the 7 creators that broke off from Image, the reality is what those guys sold at Image, they literally retired off of that. I mean, they could have. A lot of them, they were passionate. Those guys kept creating. But they made enough sales and they were doing unknown IPs at that time. They made, you know what I mean? Like, they did so well.
Right.
So for me, like, Ice Pick was a natural thing. Like, I love that genre. Let's do it. Annabelle was like, let me do something different. Let me try something different. And maybe that will strike a chord. No, these issues have not personally gone gangbusters, and that's fine. I'm here, I'm passionate, I'm going to keep making books, even though maybe I'm losing money on every single issue. But I do it, like you said, we've talked about, out of the passion, out of the love for it. And at the end of the day, like, you're right, maybe we're doing the right thing in the wrong place or at the wrong time.
Right. And that's the thing too, is sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle because you're in the right place at the right time. But the other point is, there's another thing I look at. My book, Tragedy, is different than a lot of books. Not all. There's other people doing what I'm doing because it's a continuously ongoing story, right? Now, Image, with the big names they had, being 3 months late on a book made people stop reading the book. Here I am with an ongoing, and Kickstarter, I can only do one every 3 to 4 months.
Right.
There's no momentum built there. There's none. There's no momentum built. So it's very difficult. But if I'm in a comic store, I'm not saying it's a guaranteed success. It's going to be a grind. It's going to be hard. But if I can sustain and make it a year, 12 issues in, you have a better chance at growth there than on Kickstarter crowdfunding when you have an ongoing. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of publishers don't want to pick you up, and they don't want to do ongoings because it's expensive, because it's a lot of investment on their part, and I get that. Some people think people don't have the attention spans for ongoings anymore. I don't agree with that at all.
No.
I especially don't agree with it when you're starting at a number 1. It's not like I'm on issue 1130 with Batman and I can't tell any more stories. Now I'm just vomiting shit out. I mean, I'm starting at a number 1. It's new, it's easy to jump on and follow.
Yeah. And I mean, tried that over the years, like not redoing the issue ones. I really dislike the way they just kept reissuing a number 1 and trying to redo it. Yes, as a fan first, as an artist, I followed artists. So like when Dave Finch was doing something, yes, I'd follow him when he was doing Moon Knight or he was doing Batman, and those were issue 1s. Tony Daniel was doing Deathstroke. I mean, yes, these are years ago when they were doing this, but you're right. And I tend to gravitate towards miniseries where, we got individual issues. I love the individual issues over trade paperbacks, but I understand the kind of love or the lore behind a trade paperback. You can get that, you get a complete story. It's one purchase, you're done. It makes sense. as a business, but it's
But if
crazy
you,
that
but again, I'm sorry to cut you off. Look at
no, that's fine.
Saga. Look at
Right.
Saga.
Oh yeah,
That's
dude, my wife
ongoing.
loves Saga.
Yeah,
She loves
it's
Saga.
ongoing. And look what he did before that. Why the Last Man, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it had a finite finish, but it was
Mhm.
ongoing for 60 something issues. He told the
Yeah.
story and it was done. Look at Invincible. He
Yeah.
ended it when he had nothing else to say. Walking Dead, he ended it when he had nothing else to say. But those
Yeah.
were monthly books. There is a want for that. And I think people are just trying, they don't know. We're all scrambling, trying to figure this shit out because right now
Yeah.
it's a jumbled mess. And I mean, there was a time where people were saying, oh, it's going to go all digital. And I said, it's never
Nope.
going to go all digital. And you want to know why? I'll give you one reason why. Grading.
Yep.
You will put grading out of business.
Yeah. Well, that's a huge thing. And for me, like, there's been a resurgence of physical media.
Mm-hmm.
So we can cry all day. People can be skeptics about, oh, well, it's not the 90s. No, hell no, it's not the 90s anymore. I mean, we're not selling comics, 100,000 millions of copies for these books. But at the end of the day, like, people are going to want physical media. They will always want physical media,
Well,
It's just
think
the way
about
it
it.
goes.
Every experience, just scientifically speaking, every experience is always enhanced and better the more senses you use to enjoy it. You smell the new book. You feel the book.
Yeah.
You're reading the book. You see the book. Right now people love vinyl albums, Charles, exactly. And there is a retro nostalgia thing, which shows that there's a need for the stuff we used to do. I don't buy this. I don't buy into this ongoing series are dead. I don't buy into hero books are dead. No, bad writing needs to go. But that stuff doesn't need to go.
That has been a trend for probably a good 5 to 7 years. I mean, there's outlier shows that have really strong writing, sure, but it's so far and few. Like, I was so hyped to go see Alien Romulus and just sorely disappointed.
I didn't see it yet.
No spoilers, but it's just some of the laziest screenwriting I've ever seen, and it's just a lot of people liked it. I get it. I'm a huge fan of that franchise. I can't tell you how many times I've seen all the Alien related movies and all that. I mean, so I almost I know scene for scene what's happening, and for me, it's just that's just another example of lazy screenwriting. And for me as a creator, I want to produce something that's just a little bit different. I give the example, of it's kind of like a cake, right? Anyone can make a cake. It's typical ingredients. It's those extra little ingredients, those little things that you kind of put into that, that makes it yours. And that's what I try to do with my writing in my book. And even though the artwork may look similar or may look like something you might have seen before, it's the story that can stand out. And, it's the art that can kind of hold its own. And that's what I'm trying to do. Have something that holds its own, that you could put it toe to toe with an Image book or a Marvel or DC book. And the quality is damn, that's if not there, that's pretty close. And I know you do the same thing. So it's just cracking that nut to get into retail stores because they don't want to take that chance. And that's, as a creator, that's where I struggle, is cracking that nut.
And again, it's hard because, and people hate when I say this, the industry is geared towards the middleman getting the percentages, not the creator, not the comic store. The creator is the one who made the product, period. And the comic store is the one that's getting out there to everybody. We are the ones that should be making the majority profit, but we're not. Distribution is, publishers are, they're and I'm not saying they're all rolling in dough. What I mean is that they're taking their percentages that by the time they get their money, I walk away with a loss by the time I produce all my books. And the LCS couldn't sell the 4 or 5 that I had. And then, or they did, but because I can't sustain this model, now I can't put the book out. And they're like, well, what the hell, guys? I just got 3 issues. I sold well. And now the series is over because you can't afford to put it out. So it's hard.
A numbers game. Yeah, it's literally a numbers game. Like you were talking, we talked a little bit about numbers, but if you take 200 stores and you sell them 5 copies of each book, what is that?
It's 1,000 or 5 copies at 200 stores, 10,000, right?
Yeah,
No, it's 5.
2,000.
Whatever. I'm bad at math. Go ahead. Yeah.
So am I. Actually, I'm pretty good at math, but you talk 5 copies at 200 stores. I think I want to say it's 1,000 copies.
I thought it was 1,000 at first, but yeah.
Yeah, if you do that and you're selling them, say $250 a piece, which if you're doing 1,000 or 1,500 books, that to me, I always felt 1,500 was that threshold. Once you hit 1,500, those prices start dramatically dropping as far as price per issue.
Right.
And at the end of the day, like when you look at Diamond, that's why Diamond's going, they're having all the struggles. There's a distributor out here, I have to say, he's doing some really good things in the Portland area where he's doing spinner racks. And
he was just on my post. Hang on.
Adam something.
Yes, nice guy. For like a year and a half now, Adam Watson. I was supposed to be with him. I plan on working with him once I take care of some business next year. But yes, yeah. Adam Watson.
It's same thing. Like I saw something that he was doing, and I reached out to him. Really nice guy. Took the time to kind of do like a nice little video chat with me. Spent some time, answered all my questions. Mm-hmm. And I will be doing something with him as well. But it's a matter of time and money, right? I need to have 3 to 5 issues to put in the 30 or so plus store, 30 or 40 maybe by now. Stores and little, convenience stores or comic shops.
He's hitting other places too, marijuana dispensaries and toy stores and other places. He's branching out.
Yeah, truck stops, like the most random places. He's doing what was done in the 80s and 90s with the spinner racks, and kudos that he's actually doing something that is a good business model and it makes money for him, But again, I need to have that inventory to send there and say, hey, here's 50 books, here's 100 books, go fill them out. And hopefully that turns a profit, or that's something that is worth my time and money to continue to do. So, I mean, that's an avenue of growth. But Kickstarter, how do you grow on Kickstarter? You know what I mean? You continue to put out a book. You've put out a lot of issues of tragedy, and it's like, there should be some organic growth from issue to issue.
And there was, and then it just went down this way. So I don't know. And
it's weird.
Now it's possible maybe it's just not a good book. It's not a good story. And every creator thinks their stuff is great. But if I'm getting professional writers in Marvel and DC telling me it's solid, and I'm working with professional cover artists, then I don't know what to tell you. I just don't have a freaking clue. But
no.
But the other thing, too, is in this community on Facebook, let's face it, a lot of your backers are other creators that are struggling right now. And as much as they would like to back you, they don't have the money to back you. They don't have it. So is that really who you're looking to get, No,
you definitely. And that's why I think
that's part of it, Pete. I absolutely agree. That's part of it. There was a big COVID bubble that, that finally burst. I do think that's part of it.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you're not seeing that burst with NSFW. You're seeing it with books that are based on story. Right. And that's why I make the posts I make, because it's 2 different categories. You've got that cover looks awesome, it's shiny or whatever. And then you've got, that story might look interesting. I don't know if I want to throw $15 at it.
Right. No, I agree. There was a dip, but it wasn't across the board. So you kind of have to look at it with like open eyes, open mind, and say, okay, well, if this area is dipping, but this area is not, is it an actual dip, or is it because of whatever?
Well, again, they're 2 different demographics in the same medium. Yes. And I think that Kickstarter is catering to one demographic strongly right now. And it's not bringing in the other demographic. That demographic goes into comic shops.
I will tell you this, though. I've never seen on all the
I agree with you, Pete. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I agree, because they're not going to be in comic shops. Pete, right.
NSFW is not in comic shops. This is where they come to get them. But readers know they can go to comic shops. And they like to share the experience at the comic shop, talk with the shop owners, other people about the stories they read. It's a whole other thing.
A community.
Yes. I think there's a lot. And I don't think it's insurmountable at all. As a matter of fact, I'm not getting into details, but Tragedy is going monthly into comic stores next year, so it's going to happen. But
congrats.
So thank you. I'm not talking from a point of defeatist. I'm talking from a point of we got to make this work better because right now we have more quality, professional looking indie comics than we ever have in the history of comics.
Absolutely.
And crowdfunding has everything to do with that. So I'm not shitting on crowdfunding. I'm just being realistic about it right now.
It's not a long-term goal, right? It's not a long-term.
Not for a reader base. Not for a reader base.
No.
If I was putting out NSFW and, you do your 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 campaigns, of course you can sustain on that, absolutely. Yes. But a guy like me, tragedy zipped up to the neck, her tits aren't out. No, it's not where I'm going to thrive. It's just not.
Right. No, and that's the thing. Like that's kind of where I was like, oh, let me do something a little bit different.
And you're right, but the problem with that, Pete, is price points are too high because costs are too high. One,
right.
Two, kids have so much other entertainment that why are they going to sit and read? They don't have the attention span anymore. They can go on their computer. They can go on, video games. They can watch a silly, stupid YouTube video. You're competing with so much now that it's hard to get kids to want to be invested in that between the price point and their attention span. But I agree.
I agree, and I think that's why trades have taken off in the last 15 years or so. Because as social media came out, we had more to look at, more to go to. We weren't looking at individual issues. We wanted to sit down and have almost like a novel, right?
Right.
Novels are still a thing.
It's like streaming shows. They love when you can just binge the whole freaking thing in one shot. They hate waiting week to week, and that's just a week. With a comic, you're talking month to month.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a struggle, but I think because I'm passionate, like I won't ever give up on this. Like I'm going to tell my stories until I'm done telling my stories. This is what I'm going to be doing.
Right.
So for those out there that want to care about helping indie people that can, spend that little bit extra to help us continue it, stick around because we're going to keep making it.
And I just want to remind you on this campaign, even if it's not something you're interested in, there's two things you can do to help Todd. You can either share it out, tell your friends, maybe you have a friend that's into this genre, and tell them, show them the page, give them the link. And the second is there is a donation area, $1, $5, $10. It's $20. I'm not really into NSFW, but some of the creators that do them, I think are good people. I like them. I didn't buy a book, but I donated $10, $20 to them just to support. There's other ways you can help.
Yeah, and you touch on an interesting thing, and it's come up a couple times in this conversation, like the two really different types of comics, right? The ones that are story driven and NSFW type of books. And this is by far not an NSFW book, although there is some nudity in it. But at the end of the day, it's relevant to the story, and it's not gratuitous. It's not over the top. It has to do with the history of the lore behind the dragon. And for me, like, it's important to kind of point that out in a way to where, like, you're not getting that kind of a book. I don't make those kind of books. If you want that, that's fine. But this is not that.
Right.
It's not maybe an all ages book because there is some swearing in it, and there does deal with darker themes, and that's what I produce is stories that have a little bit darker side to them. They're not puppy dog and rainbows, but again, cracking that nut to get into stores, doing an ongoing, even 4-issue miniseries, like those thrived back in the day. People loved miniseries, because it was a completed story. It was floppies, individual issues that told a complete story.
Absolutely. And, and I do think too, everything, like we talked, Charles brought up vinyl before. I don't like this absolutist, floppies are dead. It's always trades. Everything's cyclical. Everything's cyclical. We'll get back to people wanting ongoings. We'll get back to people wanting single issues and enjoying following a journey. We'll get back to it, but someone's going to have to step up and start setting that trend again, right? I mean, I hate to say this. I don't mean this to sound messed up, but masses of people are susceptible to suggestion. If you put something out there enough times, They're going to buy it. They're going to believe in it. They're going to back it. They're going to support it. I mean, it's just true. And I think right now, and I may get crap for this, but I'm used to it. I don't think people know what good quality entertainment is anymore because we've been force-fed so much shit for so long, and there's so much of it that our standards got lowered.
100%. I can't agree with that more. And send the hate my way. I don't care. But there have been, I can count it on one hand in the last probably 10 years that there's been a really good TV show or a good original film. There's been some good ones. Don't get me wrong. But like, it is lazy story writing. Look at all the failed streaming platforms. And I mean, like, Disney is like, I mean, it's freaking Disney of all places, right? They were the leader for decades. And
they've dummied down their work, which has dummied down the audience. And that's why when people say, I don't like this story because of the writing, they gaslight you and tell you you're just a hater. No, it just sucks. No, it just sucks. I mean, we had a time where Breaking Bad, Sons of Anarchy, Justified, and Dexter were out at the same time. Yeah. And those are all well-written, good shows. And then all of a sudden, we just fell off a cliff. And you might get a gem here and there, but
that's it. That's all you're getting. And even early Supernatural, like the first 6 seasons were phenomenal. I feel, they were fun. They were different. It was kind of fresh. It was like X-Files too. I mean,
right.
And that's the kind of stuff that inspired me. So that's what I write about. But yeah, there were some really good shows in the early 2000s. Mid 2000s, 2010s maybe. It started.
Charles, that's my show, man. Raylan Givens is the greatest freaking character ever created in a TV show. I didn't even like Timothy Oliphant until I watched that show.
Yeah.
It's so
a
good.
Fun show. So it's just, it's weird because if you look at like a company like Disney or even maybe start getting into comics with Image or Marvel, DC, you're right. They are dumbing down a lot of what they're doing. But also at the flip side, it feels like some of their stuff is being forced where it doesn't make sense to the story. Like if you were to take this one thing out of the story, it doesn't change it either way. It doesn't make it or break the story. So why is it even in there? And I try to approach storytelling that way. Like everything that I tell in a story is relevant to the story. So if there's something going on, it's there for a reason. And if you look at like some of the older Disney movies, some of the live action Disney movies, they were dark. Like
Black Hole. Black Hole.
All time, one of my favorites.
It's a fantastic movie. Maximilian. Oh my God.
I can't get my wife to watch it, but it is
such a good movie. It was one of the most underrated sci-fi films of all time.
Yeah, she loves the original the original trilogy of R2-D2. So like Black Hole came out like during that same era. So, it's like, is he a ripoff of R2-D2?
And they're not. It's so good.
Such a fun movie.
And for its time, the special effects were fantastic.
Way ahead.
And Maximilian is just one cool-ass robot. I don't care what anybody says. He's like my favorite. But anyway, we could talk about this all day.
We could.
We're gonna wrap up, but I want to go back to the campaign. I'm going to show the trailer one more time because we want you to come out and support, please. Just remember, guys, when you support creators like Todd, you're also supporting his entire team so that many people can live their dream, live the lives they want to live, and be productive. But we're also providing something for you. You get something that this could very well be that next story that sticks with you and you love and you reread, every so often, or share with your kids when they're old enough, or you talk with your friends about because you're passionate about the characters. I mean, none of us knew what Star Wars was before it came out in 1977, right?
Mm-hmm.
It starts somewhere. Be on the ground floor. You never know. Annabelle could be that next series, or Ice Pick could be that next series that you go, son of a bitch, what was I missing all this time? But you don't know until you try, and it's a small investment. We piss away money on cigarettes and alcohol and drugs and nights out that really just aggravated us at the end of the night with all the people being stupid or whatever. Or $8 cup of coffee at a Starbucks so they write your name wrong, or a $12 clog your arteries Happy Meal. we throw money away and everything. You can spend it on what you want, but why not invest in something that could be like that next thing that you really enjoy and look forward to?
Yeah.
All right, let's do this. I like the music, very epic.
Thank you.
So before we go, I want you to whoops, sorry about that. Before we go, I want you to take a minute to tell us why we want to back this campaign.
Honestly, because I think you'll enjoy it. Like, if you want to read a fun story, you want to read something that's got some history behind it, you like dragons, you like supernatural stuff, you like women kicking butt, you like superhero stuff, zombies. I mean, zombies show up in issue 4. If you like zombies, who doesn't like zombies? This book has a little bit of a lot of stuff, and it's a smaller tale to a larger story. And I think that if you like to read good books, I would say read this book, back it, and get some original art. We already got one stretch goal unlocked. We're working on getting the second one unlocked at $12.50, so a little over $200, and we're gonna get that next stretch goal unlocked. So, and that's more free stuff, right?
Very cool. And that's the thing, is we want to give you free stuff, so make us. Very cool. And where can we find you again, Todd?
Dark Space Studios on Facebook, Instagram, and I do believe TikTok, Twitter. Everything's going to be Todd Rayner Art. Is Facebook, Instagram. Kara, we're doing that social media. That seems to be interesting. But yeah, I mean, you can search my name, search Icepick, search Annabelle. You can find me all over the place.
Very cool. Todd, man, always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you very much for coming out. I'm rooting for you. I think we should definitely support each other and stand strong for each other and do what we can, even the littlest of things, because it really, at the end of the day, we're all just doing the same thing, and we're just trying to live our best lives and follow our passions and share the chaos in our head with everyone.
It's chaotic up there. Yeah, it's a nightmare. But yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It's always fun chatting with you and sharing stories, talking about stuff. So
yeah, anytime you have something to promote or whatever, you could always tag me, like I say, in posts. I some people get angry about that. I do not. It's social media. So yeah. even if you get one new backer from my friends list, it's something, so or you never know. There's the domino effect, right? The butterfly effect. Maybe it's not the backer, the friend on my list, but they had a friend that they recommended it to. You never know.
Exactly.
Thanks, Jason. Hope to see you at the will you be in New York, Jason? Because I'll be at the Hot Flips booth up on the floor. Come say hi. All right, Todd, man, be good. I'll see you on the flip side. I see you on Facebook all the time. So
all right. Thanks a lot.
Have a great night.
All right, you too.
Bye. So just to remind everybody, Annabelle right now is live. Traversing Deeper Parts 1 through 4 is still live. You got 13 days. I want to remind you, hit that green button to back it, or the remind me if you don't feel comfortable backing it yet. But just know they do not take your money until the campaign ends after the 13 days. So as long as you know you'll have that money, feel free to pledge now with confidence. He has a lot of different stuff. If you enjoy storytelling, he's got that. If you enjoy NSFW covers, he has a few of those. You can check that out. A little bit of something for everybody. There's original art if you want some original art pages. So, I mean, it's really offering a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Go back indie. Go support indie. I don't mean this to sound rude or insulting. We appreciate the likes and comments, but at the end of the day, we need your financial support so that we can continue to make these books. If you really do love something and you enjoy it, please invest in it hard. You know, let everybody know about it. Talk about it. Create a buzz about it. Instead of bitching about the latest movie you didn't like, maybe you could be positive and talk about how good Annabelle is, or how good Ice Pick is, or whatever book, or Charles W. Morgan's Cold Cutter. You know, we need that buzz. Create a buzz. We appreciate that, you know? All right? All right, Shafar, who are we? We are the Wonder Twins. I'm the form of water, and he's the form of an elephant, which is kind of gross because then he kind of sucks me up his snout. It's really bad. Anyway, all right, everybody. I appreciate you. I'm going to leave you with what I always leave you with. Once I figure this thing out, I don't know what's going on. Be legendary and have fun storming the castle.